What's up, everyone? Morey Croson here, and this is episode 7 of the Morey Miles podcast, and this is going to be another great episode. It's going to be with executive coach Janet Breitenbach, and she was actually my coach about 3 years ago. She works with executives, CEOs, companies, teams, athletes, and really is just all about the mindset and helping you from getting to where you currently are to where it is that you want to be, whatever that ends up being the case from a company perspective, individual perspective, and did some great work with me. That's why I obviously wanted to have her on, because she goes in depth into the language patterns we're using and just the mindset and just how to become a overall better version of yourself, something that I wish I would have dove deeper into earlier on into my life. And so go ahead and get your notebooks ready, right? If you are a parent of an athlete or a young athlete, there's going to be some great nuggets in here to help you in improving as an individual. We're going to hop right into her background and how she became an executive coach. As always, thanks for watching or listening, and enjoy the episode.
Yeah, well, I'll just share a little bit about what I do, who I do it with, and then feel free to ask any questions related to that. So I'm a partner at an executive coaching firm called Novus Global. We work with executives, CEOs, managers. We also work with, we actually work with athletes as well, entertainers, people in the entertainment industry. We just have a variety of industries we work in, but primarily a lot of my roster is C-suite executives, business owners, and whatnot. So one of the things that I get really excited that we get to do is not just work with individuals one-on-one, and that's like the standard coaching practice, but we work with teams. So sometimes we'll work with 20 leaders in an organization, and then also work from the top down to help really reinvent and create cultures that help create results that people never thought that they could go after. So it's a combo of culture reinvention, individual reinvention, and going beyond high performance. So we talk a lot about this idea of high performance, and everyone likes the idea of performing well and doing a good job and being their best. But then we invite people into a conversation about what's beyond high performance. So rather than just being the best, which is one form of high achievement, but reinventing yourself in a variety of ways so that you're expanding and exploring what you're capable of, rather than just going after being the best, which is a whole new conversation and it can be very exciting. So that's a little bit about who I am and what I do.
Yeah, already really excited about this. And
awesome.
Just to get, and kind of backtrack before we go, full speed ahead, I do want to go into a little bit of just like some of your background. I met Janet at we were doing like an individual, I was like a group coaching for a church, and, really thought that the information, like had no idea what I was walking into, and it ended up being just fantastic, all the information. And then we ended up working together. But I know that in those sessions, you shared some of your personal experience and what got you to kind of get into coaching.
Awesome. Yeah. So, a little bit about me. I'll give you the very short version. Born and raised in Los Angeles. I would say, when I went to college and into my early 20s, there was still a lot that I wasn't willing to look at with myself. So I discovered executive coaching when I was, I believe, about 32, 33. And it was absolutely one of those, man, I wish I was introduced to some of these ideas when I was in high school or college. It's the old which comes first question. Would I have even been ready for some of these difficult conversations in college? I felt like I grew up with a chip on my shoulder. I don't need anyone. I got married at 22. Looking back, mostly out of scarcity, fear, just wanting to feel good. Then I was kind of raised in an environment where you just kind of get married young, and it introduced a lot of problems in my life. I didn't know what my vision was for who I wanted to be. I wasn't getting married because I had a clear commitment or vision. It was more like, oh, I like this guy. Let's go. It feels fun and nice. And was just hit in the face for probably most of my 20s with that relationship being one of the most difficult things in my life. And it was devastating at 29 when we got a divorce. And it basically forced me to look myself in the mirror and go, where did I go wrong? How did this happen? And I remember, Morey, even before being introduced to some of these ideas that we do in executive coaching, and that was before I even really dove into therapy at all, asking myself, okay, where did I go wrong? How did I contribute to this? I somehow knew then that the problem wasn't that I needed to find a better husband. That the problem was, me, and I knew, okay, something's got to change. I need to figure out like where I went wrong, and if I actually want a successful relationship marriage one day. So what's interesting is that's related to relationship, but because of my search to explore my own blind spots, it absolutely led me to start understanding how I was getting in my own way in all areas of my life, career, friendships, community, impact, all of that. Long story short, I dove into therapy first. So after my divorce, I did about 2 years of really like looking deep, doing therapy. I did kind of group therapy as well. And then two years into that, I remember thinking, okay, so I'm now kind of getting my grounding, getting back on my feet. I'm starting to understand where I went wrong. I'm leaning into being more vulnerable. But now there's other areas of my life that I feel like I keep hitting a ceiling, specifically with my just career in general. I had dabbled in a few different careers in my 20s and always felt like I did well. I got good reviews at any job I went to. I always, like, I think even in the 2 jobs I had right before that moment, had gotten promotions, but still felt stagnant, still not clear about the direction I wanted to go in. And I knew I liked helping people. I knew I liked having conversations about personality. I love that, but I never felt like I had the skills or the tools to really adequately or effectively help others. It felt a little bit more like I'd always give this unsolicited advice and people wouldn't follow it, and it just left me frustrated. So I went to this 3-day weekend. That weekend blew me away. It disrupted me in all the best ways. I remember thinking, why hasn't anyone given me this feedback before this weekend? And because I kind of lived in this, like, I was good at everything I did, so no one could give me feedback because I didn't allow it. I was good at avoiding feedback because I did a good job, so I was good at impressing others. But that led to me never really understanding why I couldn't get to that next level in my career. So long story short, I knew long story short, I knew then and there, I need a coach and I want to be a coach. This is phenomenal, and I want to learn more about this. So I'll stop there.
No, you're good. Yeah. So, I mean, that was a good way to be able to get started. And I'm glad you said one of the important things that I realized with working with Janet is how much language matters. And with just listening to some of the things that you're saying, and I wish we can go deeper into all the different parts of it that I feel like you just, went through, where I could understand where some of the words that you're using and what you were saying, like, we can go deeper into a lot of it to be able to really help people out, right? Vulnerability, leadership, disruptions, avoiding feedback, trying to make a good impression. All those things are really things that you want to be able to dive deeper into within yourself personally, because, especially if you're younger, and that's one of the things that, I want to do this podcast for, is to help younger athletes. I wish I would have had, more help when I was younger. And so, the first thing I want to step into or go into is going to be, more on that vulnerability side, because I think that matters a lot with leadership. I think we need more leaders overall in our sports, in our younger generations, right? Like people that are understanding what true leadership is. And I think a big part of that goes into that vulnerability. And so, what made it so you were able to get vulnerable with people, and even going into like your story, right? Talking about your story just now,
Yeah.
how that makes a big impact in the ability to lead.
Yeah, two things come to mind immediately, as I even think about what it was for me. One was my rock bottom forced me to ask for help, which is the vulnerable piece, or was the vulnerable piece for me. When I thought I had it all together, when I thought I know what I'm doing, there was no reason for me to be vulnerable, because why do I need to be vulnerable? I know how to do this life,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know how to do relationships well. And then I got divorced and I realized, what? Okay, something's wrong here. And for those who are like, how do I be vulnerable without having to go through a rock bottom? There is another way. So the second thing that comes up for me is a vision that's worth going after, that you have no idea how you're going to achieve that. Because then it's going to naturally force you to be vulnerable and start asking yourself difficult questions, invite feedback from others, start looking directly at the gaps between where you are and where you want to be. If you don't have that compelling, specific vision that you're going after, then you're just kind of living day to day in a sense of feeling good, or just looking good, and all of that stuff is just going to exist, because it's like, why would you be vulnerable? There's no reason to be.
yeah. All right. A lot of these athletes, I think, are trying to get recruited to the next level in college, right? Or like a high school athlete trying to go to the Division I level, and we talked a little bit about that beforehand. But then there's also a lot of athletes that are just like trying to get a starting position, right? Trying to earn the respect within their own individual program. And so when you look back, I guess, and it's hard, I think, as time goes on, to be able to really connect to your 16-year-old self, 17-year-old self. But when you think about comfortability and uncomfortability, because there's a part of your teenage years where you feel like you're uncomfortable every day. But there's also, I think, a lot of what you don't realize looking back is like, I was just living in a bubble of my own, self comfortability, and trying to just hang out with my same friends, talk to the same people. Not you go the first day of school, you see all these new people, at least with California public school, you see all these new people, you meet all these new people, and then you're within the first month, all the people that you're going to be hanging out with, the people you're not going to want to hang out with. And then that kind of ends up being how it is the rest of the year. And so how can people get outside of that comfortability from a high school, when you're younger, right? What does that feel like? What does vulnerability look like? What does getting in your uncomfort zones look like?
Yeah, that's so good. Well, again, the first thing that comes to mind for me is normalizing and celebrating not knowing things, because you're spot on. I remember when I was a teenager being so wrapped up kind of in my own feelings. So one, having that wonderful structure. So get yourself around good people, like good support systems, so that you've got that. Because if you don't, and obviously some of us are more fortunate to have that immediately, and some of us have to work to create that. I found it mostly in the environments that I put myself in, whether it was extracurricular activities, church youth groups. Honestly, like having people that celebrated you was so important, because if you don't have that, then that's the first need you're trying to take care of before you can even think about, what do I want to grow in, or what's my vision, or any of that. So it's like, first take care of that. And then second, this is something, when I'm working with parents a lot, really encouraging them to practice helping their kids normalize and celebrate taking swings and missing.
Love it.
because
Yeah.
I
I was going
think
to say failures,
like
right? Like celebrating failures.
exactly. Exactly, because I think, and we do this almost habitually as a society. We don't, and I don't think we mean any harm by it, but oftentimes we say, even just saying phrases like, "Hey, good job," it normalizes that there's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think a lot of us grew up in a society where there's the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do, the good thing to do, the bad thing to do. And that can really mess with you when you become an adult and you're trying to figure out, how do I do the right thing and do the good thing? And how do I get that pat on the back? Versus how do I look for like things to be bad at and to fail at, and then celebrating that. Oh man, like, I'm so proud of you for taking a swing and missing. That takes a lot of courage, that takes a lot of vulnerability, that takes like a level of being a risk taker, and to celebrating that as the achievement, rather than only getting something right or getting the award or getting the pat on the back.
Yeah.
And so more than anything, I think that's the most important thing, is normalizing taking swings and missing.
Yeah, yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And I think that being able to, and going off of that, going into the idea of being able to impress, right, a coach at the next level, and because what ends up being a big thing is the statistics and the numbers, and I mean I think that is really important. We want to be able to see how many touchdowns you threw, or how many interceptions you got, or sacks, or how fast you run the 40, how strong you are. All those types of things I think end up making a big difference when colleges are looking at people. But it also matters a lot what is the character behind the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to being making a great first impression on people, right? Because I talked about that a little bit. What do you think would end up being? And you said were really good at that, right? You're really good at making the impression where you're I guess have it all together, or whatever the case may be. So when you look at somebody and see what is a good impression, what is a bad impression, what matters a lot from a perspective of somebody that is a very high professional, right? If you're going to be looking at it from the sense, because you're a coach in your own sense, right? So just because you coach organizations doesn't mean that there's a lot of separation between what a football coach is looking for, or a basketball coach, and the guys at the highest level, right? Like people that were watching on ESPN or ABC or whatever, those guys are I think looking for the same thing in organizations that you are.
Yeah. Well, the word coachability comes to mind.
Okay. I love it.
So I think it can be easy. So if you're like, I want to be a starter, or I want to get recruited by this Division I league, and you think, okay, in order to do that, I need to only impress and do a good job and all of that. And sure, there's stats, there's how's your performance and whatnot. There's also, is this person coachable? And so we'll define that. There's lots of ways to probably define that, but we'll define that by, again, willing to be vulnerable, willing to look inward, willing to not blame. So I would say that's a big characteristic trait. I don't care if you're the best performer in the world and all of your stats are incredible. If you're only blaming everyone around you for what's not working or what's going to prevent you from getting the next level, to me, that's a bit of a red flag. Like, hey, it's going to be difficult for you to grow if you're blaming your gaps or your problems on everyone around you, and you're not willing to look inward. So I love how you defined it, because it's like there's to me, there's the competency, which is the performance. Can you actually do the job before you? So if it's sports, it's what's your stats. If it's in an organization, it's what's the results. And then there's competency, and then there's coachability, and then there's character. character is a piece that I think a lot of people don't think to look at. How do you approach your problems? How do you approach the people around you? I can't tell you how often I've worked with a manager who has a high performing employee, but no one likes working with them. And it's
Yeah.
like, what do I do? They've got such great results, but the flip side of that is no one likes being around them. Everyone's avoiding giving them honest feedback because they're a jerk.
Yeah.
So, and the bottom line is, if they don't end up changing that, I don't care how good your results are, there's the other element of working with this person that's frustrating, and they're not going to last very long.
Yeah.
So
There's so
I
many
think,
great things there. That was great.
yeah, well, and you probably have seen this, I think there's an overemphasis only on the performance results in, I think, a lot of, athletic arenas, versus like character, coachability, confidence, we call them the 4 C's. So it's knowing that those parts are all important. It's like the 3 or 4-legged stool. If you have an overemphasis on one side, you've got a lopsided stool, and it's not going to create as many results as you want long term.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the things, and I think this can end up being a great conversation that you kind of talked about, and it's kind of changing it up a little bit, but you talked about disruptions, right? And almost looking for some disruptions within your life to be able to and for me, what immediately came off of that was, wow, I'm so routine oriented, right? And I think as an athlete, you have so many routines. You go to practice from 4 to 7, you lift weights from this time, you go to school at this time, you eat at this time, right? And so for my life to be able to sync up, I try to create as much of a routine as possible to make it so then I'm consistent in getting the results. And I'm always pushing for, guys to be very consistent with their routines, because I think at the end of the day, if you can, let's say if you're trying to throw the ball further, if you can be consistent in being able to work on the parts of the throw that you need to, then over the course of 12 weeks, you'll make a lot of improvement. Or, same thing with speed. If you work on your start or your top end speed, right? But then I love the disruptions part of it, right? Because now that adds in a different dimension to everything that allows people to be able to, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, reinvent themselves, right? Or be able to, set up a opportunity to be able to go even beyond what being the best even looks like. So, how do you manage that? Because I know you're very routine oriented as well. I would say that you're probably even more routine oriented than me. So, how do you avoid or how do you manage routines, right? Or discipline, or doing the same thing with disruptions, and being able to, I guess, change up part of your what you're doing on a daily basis, a weekly basis.
That's so great. Well, and I think key distinction there is creating routine in your life and what you're up to, so that disruption in the place where growth is needed can be possible. So as an example, if actually growing and disrupting where I'm comfortable is difficult when I don't even have the basic level of routine. Like my life is falling apart. I'm a hot mess, right? I'm not even working out consistently. I'm late to meetings. I'm not eating healthy. And then someone tries to give me feedback about how I need to grow my performance. I'm like, I can't even, I just need to take care of my life first, right? So I think there's a high value and importance with routine. One, it allows us to get those elements of our life into the habit part of our brain, right? So the easy example that is used probably over and over again is brushing your teeth, right? If you've ever brushed your teeth and then afterwards gone, did I brush my teeth? I forgot if I did. It's because it's such a habit that you're not actually using the creative part of your brain while you're doing that. So you want to be able to reserve the creative elements of your brain for the things that matter most. So if you've got routine and like health and your calendar and just taking care of your body, and then you want to disrupt where you might be comfortable, and that could be around goals. So Morey, when we worked together, we talked a lot about this idea of picking goals that are going to be scary, that are going to force you out of your comfort zone, that are going to require you to grow. And that's where I think disruption is necessary. And so, again, if I'm talking to someone and they can't even think about those big, crazy goals because their life isn't at work, then I'm probably going to suggest we start small. Let's first get your life, in order. And that's why it's up to everyone. Everyone is different. Everyone has a different intuitive sense of what feels crazy and impossible. And so let's just start there. And then in a few weeks, when you're like, wow, I thought it would be impossible for me to be consistent with my workouts, consistent with my eating, consistent with my timing and my sleep and all that. Now we can go after something bigger and something that's going to require you to grow.
So good. I hope the people that are listening are taking notes on this, because I already have a page. I'm about to switch to my next page because there's just so many great notes that coming from this. But yeah, I mean, so based off of that, I know for me, my one of my personal stories that I don't even utilize a lot, and you just brought it up, and it made me think like, wow, that is something that I should use way more often. Because obviously, so for me, I work with a lot of younger athletes, right? And a lot of times, they're going to be, reaching out to me with like a, hey coach, like, can you help me get better with, check out my clip and let me know what I can get better at, right? Whatever it ends up being. Okay. And then if we go in and go like, okay, I see some things like, let's talk about a program. Let's talk about something that's more substantial than me just, giving you a little bit of feedback one time, because that's not really where growth happens. Growth happens when we make a commitment, right? And so one of the stories with me is I was in, had a lot of struggles going on within my life when it comes to, what I wanted to do as a football player, right? I wanted to go to Division I wanted to make it to the NFL, and I wanted to do all these things. And, here I am in small Ottawa, Kansas, right? Didn't go near as big of a school. I feel like I should be, getting a lot more attention, right? Getting the ball more, right? At this point, I'm playing receiver. I should be getting the ball more, right? Like all these things. And I came to a point where it's like, man, this isn't probably what I'm going to be able to do. Like, I'm not going to play NFL, right? I'm not going to be able to. And so then I started saying, I need to get my life together. Like, I have average grades. I'm in Ottawa, Kansas. Like, there's nothing about me that is attractive if I was like looking for, and so I made that decision to be able to change. So I started getting straight A's. I started reading books. I just changed who I was, right?
Yeah.
And that made it so then my parents were more willing to like invest into me. Like when I first started my business, they were like, yeah, well, I'll help you, because they saw who I was, right? And, prioritizing partying and having a good time and not prioritizing school and life. And what am I going to actually do? And so, looking at it from a pure objective standpoint, right? If you're an athlete listening to this and maybe this connects to you, hopefully it does, and you have a situation where you're like, oh yeah, I'm trying to get better in a particular area, but, I don't have the money, right? I have no money, right? And my parents won't invest into me, and then blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, let's look at your entire landscape of what's going on, right? How well are you eating, right? How often are you working out? What are your grades like? How well are you at getting up in the morning? Like, does mom have to get you up in the morning? Does mom have to do your laundry? Does mom have to get food for you every, like, so when you look at people that are looking to go to the NFL or be great executives, and you go in and see that their lives are not together, right? They're not able to do like the basic stuff. How can you end up creating some of those changes, right? And I guess, and I try to want to make it as much as one question as possible, and I almost want to be able to go into deeper layers of like, from your kid's perspective, if you're looking at yourself, like, what should be what it is that you're, I guess, measuring, right? Like what are important things, I guess, to be able to measure. Okay. So, so first, I guess,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I can even imagine listening to this and feeling overwhelmed if you're like, I don't even have a plan or a routine or a structure for some of those basic things.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing there is, and this is the power of small nuclear steps. We talk about nuclear as a word to say small but big impact.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, if we go, I want to be the best of this and be, and get to this high level point, although that can be inspiring and can create growth, if it creates overwhelm, oftentimes that's because maybe you're out of alignment with your own word. And so I'll pause there to kind of even define what I mean there, because I do actually think this is an underutilized tool for young people as well, is to understand the power of your own word. And what I mean by that is, and we use the word integrity, but not in a moralized way, just like meaning, do I do what I say I'm going to do? So if I say I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow morning, and then and I say at 9 a.m. I'm going to the gym, and then it's 8:30 and I'm like, I don't really have to go. Maybe I can do it tomorrow. And it sounds innocent, right? Like, okay, not a big deal. But we need to understand how psychologically, when we break our own word to ourselves, what that does to our confidence or our ability to commit to bigger things. So if I don't honor my own word with going to the gym or eating healthy, then imagine what's going to happen inside my brain when I say I want to be recruited to Division 1, and there's a little voice in the back of my head that says, well, but are you really going to do what you need to do to get there? Right. And then it creates like this self-doubt and this lack of confidence. So Morey, when I get people that come to me and say, okay, I don't have money to pay you, so give me one tip on how to get more confidence. Oftentimes people assume what I'm going to say is, write out affirmations about yourself, which I believe in that as well. I think that's helpful. I'm successful, I'm good. All this stuff is great. The first thing I tell them is begin to audit your own levels of integrity, AKA begin doing what you say you're going to do, even in small little ways. Make small commitments to yourself and honor them, because we are dual human beings. So it doesn't matter if, well, I'm honoring my word to everyone else, but I'm not honoring my word to myself. I'm listening. My brain is listening and watching when I don't do that. And then it's creating my levels of confidence. So I would say that would be the first thing.
I love it. I know. And we should probably get deeper into the mindset side of things as well. Like when we go into, somebody that's a high performer, I think you kind of alluded to it there, right? And has a great mindset for athletic achievement, and has that confidence and that ability to at the end of the games rally the team around them, and have a lot of belief in themselves. Where does that start? How does that start? And I guess what do we need to do in order to get there?
Yeah. Well, I think first recognizing that you even have a mindset. Most people don't even acknowledge or haven't really explored how their thoughts are connected to their behavior. Most people just assume I choose to do something and then I do it or don't. And then they try to strong arm or white knuckle like changing their behavior, and they get frustrated when their behavior doesn't change. So one of the first things I like to do, and so we work with a lot of athletes as well, and it's just even having them write down what are my thoughts about myself, about others, about what I'm capable of, about the industry I'm in, so about whatever division I'm in, or my coach or my team. What are my beliefs, judgments, thoughts? We call them perceptions as well. Even just getting those onto a piece of paper can be extremely powerful, because when they don't get out of our head and onto a piece of paper, they just live up in our head and they exist as if they're capital T true. And then we never actually question who's driving the bus. Who's driving my behavior? What is driving my behavior? We just assume that we're capable from any given moment to change our behavior. But if you've ever had the experience, Morey, of doing something or saying something and then later going, why did I do that? Or why did I say that? That's evidence of that sometimes our behavior is driven by something else that doesn't seem like us. And that's our thoughts. That's our thinking. How do we, and that's what a mindset is basically. So I think understanding that you do have a mindset and starting to investigate, what is my mindset? What am I believing subconsciously is a word that you could use to help people understand. Like, I have a subconscious thought. So as an example, I was working with someone the other day, and they're leading a team, and they said something to the effect of, I feel like I'm the only one who can do this job right. And so his complaint was, and whenever he delegates something to someone on his team, that it doesn't get done or it doesn't get done right. And so he's living with this belief that I'm the only one, if we had to shorten it. I'm the only one who can do this right, and it's all up to me. But he says it as if it's just fact, right? Like, no, Janet, it's up to me. So then we decided to explore it as a mindset. Hey, like, what does this create when you believe that? What happens? And then when we discovered all these behaviors that come that actually aren't helpful for taking on that mindset. And then just for him to even notice that he is choosing to believe that was super powerful for him. So he got to try on a new belief, like, okay, others are available. I get to train others when they have gaps. You know, I'm not the only one. Or I get to hire if we don't have enough help. You know, all these other possibilities weren't even available to him before we chose to slow down and look at that as his mindset. And so number one is just even looking at, what are you thinking or believing that you might not be aware of?
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things that I immediately started thinking about as well is, like, you know, there's certain times, you know, typically what happens to me at the end of the day, and one of the behaviors I've been, you know, working to be able to get out of, right? So, you know, start early in the mornings, right? And I'm working towards the end of the day, and I, you know, get done and make dinner, eating dinner, and it's getting to like 9 o'clock, and there's, you know, usually something I want to do, right? Maybe help out or do a certain program or work on some copywriting within like a website or something like that. And then I just start falling into this like allure of, you know, maybe watching something on YouTube, right? Or something. And then I even know to myself, I'm like, if you start this, you're not going to be able to get out of this. Like, don't do it. Don't even start. What are you doing? Like, better stop, right? And then you go into it, and it's an hour later, and you're like, oh my gosh, I just did exactly what I told you, know. So when you go in and are I guess trying to retrain that, right? Because I'm sure this is relatable to people, you know, whether it be like a social media or whatever, you know, like you want to work out, but instead you're spending time on Instagram or TikTok or whatever the case may be. You know, what are some of the recommendations that you would give for somebody who goes through that?
Yeah, well, a little bit of what I talked about around even just noticing what the mindset is behind that created that. And also what's coming up for me is just even some grace for yourself in those moments. Like oftentimes what keeps behaviors we don't like in place is this self-judgment. Like, I really shouldn't be doing this, or I really should be working on something else. Anytime we have that kind of obligatory language, like, I really have to be doing this, I really should be doing this, it's often can keep that behavior in place because there's like a dragging nature to it. So we just feel that judgment, and then we put ourselves in this place where there's no possibility for us to get out of that, because now we've identified with, man, I'm someone who is lazy. Or, I mean, this was a mindset I've battled and transformed over the last few years, was this belief that I'm lazy.
Yeah.
And so every time I chose to believe that about myself, I lived into it because it's what I was focusing on. So even just giving myself permission to see all the areas in my life that I wasn't lazy, I started to re-identify myself as someone who follows through, who's consistent, who's a hard worker. And then it allowed me to give myself grace. I also love this idea of committed versus interested. And oftentimes when we're living in should, we're thinking we're really committed to something, but then my actions are telling me otherwise. I'm like, I keep not doing this. So even just to give myself permission to say, you know what, I'm not committed to this. I'm interested in it, but right now I'm not committed to it. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, look, my behavior is telling me something different, especially if it's chronic, especially if it keeps happening over and over again. Like, hey, I keep saying I'm going to work on this creative project, or I keep saying I'm going to go focus on, learning about this new technique for what I'm up to, but I keep avoiding it, and I keep just not following through on that. It's like, hey, maybe I'm not committed to it right now, and is that okay?
Yeah. No,
okay, great.
I know. And I mean, one of the things that comes to mind there too is just like setting up the right times for when to do things as well, right? So if a lot of times, because that's such a creative thing, so what's helped me is working on creative things earlier on in the day, and then I schedule more of like my training later on, because it's like, I don't need to be creative or as creative when I'm teaching somebody how to run faster, or jump higher, be stronger, throw the ball better. It's like something that's just like natural, but like a lot of that more creative stuff, or working out, where you have to put a lot of energy into it. The earlier I do it, then the better chance it is that I think I get it all done. So that's always been
great.
something that helps me as well. Oh, go ahead.
Or I was just going to say, and just to have the grace for yourself to recognize that, if similar, I think, as a lot of people, but trying over and over and over again to do something at a time when my brain's a little fuzzy and not in a creative space, and it not working, and going, hey, how about I try something new? I'm going to commit to making this the first thing I do in the morning, and then course correcting. So that comes from coming from a place of curiosity rather than judgment, self-judgment. And so, that makes sense.
I love it. And, then I want to go one more question, then we'll go into some of the ways to be able to get in contact with you, and if there's more questions and things like that. But, a big thing that I work with is this concept of, or try to work through, I guess, work through whatever ends up, I know you're big on language, and we could probably go deep into that as well. But, the whole thing is like, I'm trying to do this, right? Whatever it ends up doing, like I'm trying to fix my stride, or I'm trying to fix my technique, and I can't do it, right? I'm trying, I can't figure it out. I'm not, not a natural athlete. I'm not a natural learner. I'm not coachable because, I'm learning what I should be, or he's telling me what I should be doing, and I can't do, so, and I guess it goes into the language side of it, from a athlete perspective, how important is it, or, how valuable is it for people to be talking about them trying something, or that they can't do it, or that they are unable, or do not come with, not natural.
So I'll give my kind of summary of this idea. And if you're someone listening and you want to dig deeper into this, I would recommend a book called The 3 Laws of Performance, which digs deeper into the idea that all of our behavior comes from our language. And so our language is how we transform. If you change your language, you change your world, you change your results, all of that. And it may seem like a simple concept. I think we underestimate how powerful our language really is. And all you have to do is start trying on new language and see how it changes your state, your way of being, how you feel. And Morey, you gave a good example of the I'll try or I'm trying. And again, we don't want to demonize language. I still absolutely use I'm trying once,
Yeah, me too.
it's I don't completely eliminate it, right? And our language reveals our state. And we talk about two primary states: a disempowered state and an empowered state. And a lot of disempowered language or phrases like I'm trying to do this, or I can't, or sure, maybe, I really should is an example, or I really need to or have to, often can create a state of where you're not in power. That's why it's called disempowered, right? You're not suddenly the one with the ownership. Whereas empowered phrases like I choose to. So instead of I'm trying to work on my stance, or I'm trying to work on a new technique, I'm committed to working on this technique 3 times per week, right? So even just that slight change in language, if you keep putting that on, upgrading your language, you'll notice that you feel differently. And again, your brain is listening. Your brain is listening to the words coming out of your mouth, and you'll notice it will affect your energy, your way of being. Our language can shift how we view our challenges. So and it's not a negative or positive thing. Oftentimes I'll introduce this idea and they'll think, oh yeah, so positive language. Well, not necessarily. We don't have to. You can be going through a very extremely difficult phase in life and have an empowered way of thinking about it. It doesn't mean that you're putting a positive spin on it. It's just how you're choosing to show up and relate to that thing. So even just the example of, man, I really have to make more money versus I'm committed to doing X, Y, Z to make this much more money, will suddenly put you back in the driver's seat. So it's absolutely something that is the easiest thing that you can do to begin changing your performance is just change your language. And it doesn't take that much more time to do that. That's what that's why I like it as a tool.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. So, I mean, thanks again so much, Janet, for doing this. And I will say from a personal testimony side, I know we talked about this earlier, but the results that Janet got me when I was working with her as a coach were unbelievable. She really made a big difference in my, ability to be able to change my language and therefore change my performance and my ability to do a lot better from a leader, from a CEO, and help me in being able to establish like where is my time going and how do I set up my days and my goals to be able to make it so I can get the most out of my time and the most out of my days. So what is a great way to be able, the best way to be able to contact you if somebody's looking to get coaching, and I mean, I guess what would be some of your ways of going about it? Or is it mostly through CEOs, or can like a parent go and reach out to you about maybe some family things, or for their kids?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely, all of the above. We work with a wide variety of people at different rates as well. It's one of the things that we're building towards because we have a passion for helping people at different levels, different industries. So first things first, our website is novus.global, N as in Nancy, OVUS.global. Anyone can feel free to email me personally. My email is janet@novus.global, so the same domain there. And if you prefer something a little bit more casual, I actually do love occasionally posting on Instagram. So you can find me. It's at janet.breitenbach. And I'm still getting used to explaining a longer, more complicated name. My previous name was Wood. I just got married last year. So Breitenbach is Breitenbach. But any of those ways, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to hear more about what you're looking for and connect you. And we also, at any given time, we have apprentice coaches as well who are just looking to serve people and get their reps in if price or rates is an issue. So feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much, Janet. You're the best, or one of
Yeah.
the best.
Thank you. And you're the best too. I love your passion for this space and for helping people of all ages, specifically youth. It's just so needed, and it's such an important season in everyone's life. So thank you for what you do and for your passion.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll talk soon, and
Yes.
keep killing it.
Awesome.
All right. Thank
Thanks,
you, Janet.
Morey.